my husband and I, when we were dating, we dated in like high school, we dated in college. And I don't know how, but at some point there became like a Christmas gift competition of like who could get the best Christmas gift for each other. And so one year I was like, quilt, that's gonna like clearly win as the best gift.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Miranda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Nailed it, as always. Very special guest. I know I say this every time, but my favorite part about doing this podcast is getting to talk to the people that we've met through the quilt community and on Instagram. And this person is no exception. It's Hayley Springer of Spring Daisy Stitchery. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk to you because we've been talking on Instagram for like probably over a year now. So I'm just so excited to have a reason to like chat with you in person as life is these days. Normally we start out with like hearing how you got into quilting, but I actually just want to start out talking about your dogs.
Yeah, the Corgis.
Because they're so cute. And I think your dogs and my dogs share a very like common theme of like, if there's like a single scrap of fabric on the floor, they're like, oh, a quilt for me, beautiful. And it can be like a charm square on the floor. And they're like, oh, a quilt. And I love that.
Arwen really loves quilts. So yesterday, we had like a sit and sew with like my Nana and my mom and actually an Instagram friend that I had recently met, and she came over too. And Arwen hates all new people, like not like aggressively hates, but like I'm gonna go hide like 2 rooms over and lightly growl at you and pretend that I'm scary. And my Instagram friend was laying out backing to like sew together, and Arwen actually like came over to sit on the backing. She was like, I don't want to be anywhere near you, but this is too tempting. I will lay on the fabric.
I cannot resist.
And lately she's been like, anytime I chain piece, all of a sudden I'll be like, why can't I make it? And then I look down and she's just like laying on top of it, and it's becoming a problem.
You're so cute.
Great.
Yeah. I also love every time you post a story that you're traveling with your dogs, Arwen's face is like my favorite thing in the entire world. She has like the most excited, happy face. It's so cute.
Satan's always like lounging or like looking out the window, majestic like, and Arwen's always like I don't know, just being super derpy in the front seat, like looking at us. And
it's my favorite thing ever.
So cute.
So cute. All right, now that we've gotten the quilting corgis out of the way, I'd love to know just your story and how you got into quilting, because now I want to say you're a voracious pattern designer. Like every day, it seems like you're working on a new pattern. Like every week, you're like, I have 4 new patterns coming out, and that is crazy. So I would just love to hear.
I feel like I spend a lot of time developing them, and then they reach various stages, and then I tend to lose interest, and I come back to them, or I don't. I don't actually have that many out, but I do think the last few months I've really been working on like finishing some things up and trying to find like creative energy again. And I finished some things up, and then my creative energy exploded. So right now it is a bit of like exploding of me doing like a bunch of crazy stuff. But how I got into quilting. So I feel like this isn't a particularly traditional story, but my husband and I, when we were dating, we dated in like high school, we dated in college. And I don't know how, but at some point there became like a Christmas gift competition of like who could get the best Christmas gift for each other. And so one year I was like, quilt, that's gonna like clearly win as the best gift. And my mom had made like 2, not very many quilts, like a few quilts. And so she helped me, and like, I didn't know what I was doing. And it turned out like, okay, I like didn't even quilt it on the machine. I like wrote like yarn tied it and managed to like tie it to the carpet. And I had to like, it was a whole big thing. But it finished, and he loved it. It actually is in quilt retirement, because forced retirement on my part, because he was basically, using it to death. And it was like cheaper Joann's fabric, which was my first quilt. And like it had polyester batting. And at one point, somehow part of the batting got attached to the other part of the batting. And like the whole quilt was like, I don't even know. Anyway, use nice batting is the moral of this story. But that is the first quilt that I ever made. but I didn't really like get into quilting after that. It was kind of like, yes, my Christmas gift has vanquished, my foe here. And it really wasn't until I finished grad school and I was having problems finding a job in coastal geomorphology in the North Texas area. And so I was unemployed for a few months and I got back into quilting. I was like, that restless, unemployed energy, and I started quilting again. And then I started working and I just kept quilting. But
I love that.
Yes.
I've never made a quilt where I've had to like hand quilt or hand tie anything. And so I'm always just impressed by people who are like, oh, my first quilt ever. I just like hand tied it together.
I was on a bit of a deadline because it was supposed to be in time for Christmas. And I came home for Christmas break and I was like, let's make a quilt, Mom. And I was like, what? So we kind of had to. But if you do hand tie it, don't do it on carpet. And if you do, make sure you don't catch the carpet and the tying.
That's so funny. I would have left it there. I'd been like, well, this is your new rug. So
like went to like pick it up and I was like, like got yanked. It was completely attached to the carpet in multiple places.
Oh, that's so funny.
That is so funny. I've been like hand binding and it was like sitting in my lap and I don't know what I was doing. I think I was like wrestling with like a corner or something. And I like pushed it through and it went through my pants. So I like went to pull it up and it was like sewn to my pants. So
I love that.
It can happen,
I've never accidentally attached a quilt to myself or my surroundings. So
it'll happen eventually.
It'll happen. I'm certain it will.
It has to.
Yeah, you're totally right. Quilts are the best gift. We have talked about that before. Like I actually feel sometimes awkward going to baby showers because I'm like, sorry, grandma, that I came with like a better gift.
Yeah, we're always like, everybody, I know, like just put your presents away. They'll open them later. Like it's fine.
I haven't actually ever brought a quilt to a baby shower. I am young enough that like most of my friends haven't been having kids yet. And my sister had her kid before I was like quilting. And so I've been like in this weird gap where like, I just don't know anybody who has babies. So I'm not popping out baby quilts or anything.
Yeah. Last year and this year for me has been like baby central. I already have like a handful that I need to make this year, but yeah, it just started for me very recently.
Yeah.
It'll probably happen to me at some point soon.
Yeah. Just wait.
It hasn't started yet.
Wait
I
for
thought
the
about like
wave.
stockpiling them in the closet just in case. I'm like, okay, I have some like spares made and ready.
That's smart. I wait until like the week before and then I panic about it and then I just like slam it together and
They're always so cute though, so it's fine. It works.
Fine. And you do create a lot of patterns all the time. And I love them. I am biased because I pattern tested a few of them and they are some of my favorite quilts. But how did you get into like pattern designing and how do you like find inspiration for those shapes and styles?
So I feel like my intro to pattern designing is a little, I don't know, it just kind of just happened. So at one point I was like, I really wanted to make a moon phases quilt and I became like obsessed with the idea of doing it. So I was like searching for patterns. And at the time, this was like late 2019, I think I couldn't find a single one. And I mean, maybe one existed out there, but I could not find any. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I can do math. I can figure this out. So I like sat down and I like created a plan. It was like the first time I ever did this. So I bought like, I still have some of the fabric from it because I was like, I'm going to make sure I have like way more than I need. And I definitely did have way more than I needed. And I like was planning the whole thing. So I just wrote it as I kind of went so that I had a way to make it and I knew how to make it. And then I like finished writing it and I finished the quilt and I was like, well, if I wrote it, I guess I could just like put it up. I don't really doesn't need to sell anything, but if I already wrote it, might as well. And I think that is basically how my first 3 quilt patterns went. Cause then after that I was, I sketched something. I was like, oh, let's make it. And then I was only making like one version of everything because it was more of like patterns for me. And then recently I started, I guess doing it more professionally where I make multiple versions and put some effort forth for marketing, which was not how I originally did it. And I forgot the rest of the question.
Just where you find inspiration. My favorite thing about your patterns, well, not my favorite thing, but a cool thing I think about them is that they all have really cool names inspired by like various pop culture, specifically Lord of the Rings, which we know your dog's name, so we know that you're a fan. So.
I get inspiration in a lot of places. I think it kind of depends. I feel like it depends on the quilt. Sometimes I have inspiration from like tile or something like that. Sometimes I get inspired by like English paper piecing designs, but I want to be able to make them by machine.
Mm-hmm.
The wall behind me.
Love
and sometimes I like love tile, and then sometimes I have like a goal that I want to reach, and so I kind of make it happen. Like with my Hexie Spectrum quilt pattern, I was like really intense one day, and I have this laundry list of things I want a pattern to somehow achieve. I was like, I want English paper piecing, and I want hexie flowers, and I want there to be a rainbow, and I want it to be sampler, and I want it to have like a line that like makes your eye move. And I was like, okay, now go make that happen, brain. I'm gonna need you to achieve this. And so sometimes it's like that, and other times it's, I don't know. I grew up, my mom painted murals, and then I don't know, I guess always grew up around like the art and all of that stuff. So I've never really given it a lot of thought. It just kind of happens all the time. I probably have enough pattern ideas to last me like 4 years if I didn't come up with another idea for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's a real problem, but I like it, so it works for me.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that, because you are just knocking out ideas all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that they look like English paper piecing. Like every time you talk to me about a new pattern, I'm like, is there paper piecing? No, great, I'm on it.
I have, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been doing so much lately. I've had 2 English paper piecing patterns take so long to produce.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 'cause I feel like you have to really think about, like, you have to come up with the idea, you have to do all the math, do all the pattern writing, make a version, send it to testers, and have testers make their version.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try to give my testers like a really long time to do it, because otherwise it's crazy and rude and all kinds of things. But so like I have AON and AMR at testers right now, and I started on it, I think spring break of last year was when I cut into fabric and started on it, and it's still going, but it's not here yet. And then I did like the newsletter thing, and I'm doing my temperature quilt pattern and tutorial. And then I'm working on a 4-pack of hexagons. And I feel like, I don't know, I just love pop culture because influences on like the names and everything, because I feel like it's really kind of like the purpose of like hobbies and entertainment is to like give you a way to like express yourself and or like a way to escape.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really feel like the media influences of like pop culture stuff meeting the ability to like produce art, I don't know, it really meshes well for me. And then sometimes it gives me like a fun way to theme it around, and I just have fun with it. I also think that like they're probably really hard to pronounce, and there's probably some people who hate it, but I enjoy it personally.
That's like weeds out the people who don't know what it is.
Yeah.
The other day I was getting a new couch delivered, and the delivery people came in, and I have a lot of books out. I have like 4 bookshelves out in my thing. Like I'm a big reader. And the delivery guy was looking at my bookshelf, and he was like, I bet you have Twilight on here. And I was like, yeah, I do. And he was like, do you even have Lord of the Rings? And I was like, get out of my house. I know more than you.
We're like, also yes, but leave.
That's such a snobby comment. Like
It was. I was so upset. Anyway.
I'm allowed to like both or neither. It's
right.
up to me.
Yeah. But I love a subtle reference, or like just like the feeling of a quilt can be kind of like magical and fantastical, rather than like making a quilt that has like Harry Potter's face on it or something like that, you know, like making a quilt that like kind of has like the essence of something that you love in pop culture, but not without being like in your face, like printed, trademarked fabric.
I get it. I tend to also like watch the movies if I'm making them a lot, and like I'm making a 4-pack of patterns right now, and it's I'm named them after Little Women, like the 4 sisters.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of fun with that because I couldn't come up with names originally. And then it just kind of hit me. And I think it worked particularly well because of there's 4 sisters and there's 4 patterns. And then I named like each pattern for like the qualities in the sister. Does that make sense? Like, so Joe is like the more modern one, and like Beth is the more like comforting, like homey vibes. And so I've been watching Little Women way more than I probably ever have in my life. Cause I just like keep watching it again. Cause it's like, I don't know, it's like giving me energy.
Yeah.
But I think that I don't know. It's just like all the things that I love together. Plus, you know, then Arwen gets a quilt named after her. Theoden doesn't have one yet, but he was originally supposed to have one. And then the name got changed.
I'm sure he doesn't mind.
That's what my husband was like, because it was supposed to be like, I have a sister pattern, and one of them was supposed to be Theoden, and then like, I don't remember what my other one was. And I told my husband, and he's like, but it's a sister pattern. I'm like, yeah. And he was like, we have to do like Awen and Amer because they're like siblings. And I was like, so we did that. He's like, you can name a pattern after him later. It's not like you don't make enough.
Yeah, from what I can tell, he thinks all of the patterns are his, so I think he's fine.
Yeah.
That's why
cleans quilts. All of a sudden your quilt will be like slowly sliding off your body, and like you look down and he's like laying on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great because if I want my dogs to lay somewhere, I'll just like throw a quilt on the floor and they're like, we're good, we're here. I was going to ask what you watch while you quilt, and so you kind of already answered that, but I'm totally the same way. Like if I'm working on a quilt that, like I did a big Harry Potter quilt for someone last year, like a king size one. It took me forever. And it did have like trademark Harry Potter fabric, but I really tried to find fabric that was like pretty and not just like his face printed on fabric. But I watched like the whole series while I was making that quilt because I was like, I need to be in the zone. I need to be in Harry Potter land. But yeah, I love that. I feel like when I watch things while I'm quilting, that's like imbued in the quilt a little bit, even if it's totally unrelated.
It is. I have a quilt that like one of my Gondor quilts, I watched like all of Gilmore Girls the entire time I was making this twin quilt. And so I know it's the Gondor quilt, but in my head, I'm like, that's the Gilmore Girls quilt.
Yeah. Major Gilmore Girls fan. I'm almost always watching Gilmore Girls when I quilt. That's in all of my quilts.
Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to go back. We're jumping all over the place, but I wanted to go back and touch on English paper piecing because I don't think we've ever talked about that. And we've talked about, I guess, regular paper piecing. Is it foundation paper piecing? Yeah. And that's where you like sew it onto a piece of paper. But English paper piecing is different because you have what I assume is like a million pieces of paper, and you actually like wrap the fabric around them and then put them together like a puzzle. And that's crazy. So when you're going to make a new pattern, do you just have to like print out all those little pieces and cut them out?
So far, all my patterns, I do a lot of English paper piecing. I do other patterns. I am actually really bad about finishing full English paper piecing patterns. I have never finished a full English paper pieced quilt, which is crazy because I feel like I'm always English paper piecing, but I have not done it. And it's one of the reasons why I started designing patterns with English paper piecing appliqued onto it, because that's a finish line I can reach.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to finish them. Otherwise, I get distracted because my attention span is that of a squirrel and I just can't finish them. So I designed the ones with the applique, and all of my applique ones right now are 1-inch hexagons, which are like the really classic shape. And I generally just buy those online, but most English paper piecing like kits and stuff, you can buy kits from somebody and it'll have like all the papers, or you can make them all yourself. They have like all kinds of options. Like you can punch papers. Like if you get like Amazon, you can get like a punch to like punch a 1-inch hexagon. But I would really advise, if anybody wanted to do it, to get it through like reputable dealers, because what'll happen if you get it like on Amazon or sometimes Joann's, they measure the hexagon like incorrectly, which sounds like there shouldn't be debate. But the correct way to measure it is like each side of whatever shape it is. That's like, if it's a 1-inch hexagon, like one of the hexagon sides is 1 inch. But sometimes they'll like do diameter or like do all kinds of crazy measuring if it's not like English paper piecing companies.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have shapes that are not the correct shape, which can be bad.
Yeah. I would just
very bad. You
away.
talked about how they all have to fit together like a puzzle. So depending on what you're doing,
Yeah.
you might be crying soon.
So many tears. That would be so frustrating too, because then it's like, I mean, if they're just like, oh, we can just make these really fast and make a buck, but then you're like completely ruining someone's like
life and for a day at least. Someone's complete life for a day. Yeah. Maybe 2 days.
It would take me longer than a day to recover from that.
I'll be furious.
So I just wanted to throw that out there because people, I feel like whenever they're like, oh, I'll do it, they're like randomly will buy it somewhere. And I cannot express enough how much that is not a great idea. I'm not like, you have to buy it from one company, everybody else is wrong, but like buy it from don't buy it from Amazon.
Check the reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, buy it not from Amazon.
Well, that's amazing. I've never even tried that yet because
it's really, everybody is always like so scared of it. And don't get me wrong, I've tried a lot of quilting stuff and there's some stuff that I'm still scared of and haven't tried. I will be the first to admit that. But I feel like everybody's so scared of like trying English paper piecing, and of all the like quilting things that I've tried throughout my, I guess not that long quilting journey, it's been like the easiest one, like the most time consuming, but like the easiest. Like you like hype up all this fear and you start it. Like free motion quilting lived up to the fear. It really did. But English paper piecing, I did it and I was like, this is way easier than I thought it would be. I mean, I'm never going to finish this quilt, maybe in like 30 years, but it wasn't as hard as I thought.
When you have all the pieces together, do you hand stitch them together or do you machine piece them?
So it kind of depends. If you're doing like a full English paper piece quilt, then you hand sew all of it together. But like I have some quilt patterns that have the English paper piecing that are like applique on. So once you make your block, essentially you pop your papers out and then you can hand or machine applique it. I generally machine applique it because I'm lazy, but you technically can do either. It really depends on the pattern. And I think that if you're deciding like, I'm going to try English paper piecing, this is my moment, I'm going to do it. I strongly suggest that you do one that's applique to start with as your first one, because they take so much less time. So if you decide you don't like it, then you won't be doing it forever. If you do like it, then you can still finish it and then pick like a project when you know more. But I really suggest starting with like a hexagon. It's really the easiest like shape to start with as far as like points and stuff, and an applique pattern so that you can actually like finish it. Yeah. And if you don't like it, then you're fine. And if you love it, then you'll finish it and you can pick something else. But applique is really the best for like a first time project.
Yeah. And Hayley has some great applique patterns that you can choose from.
Yeah, I do. I like to think so. But yeah, and there's going to be more. I have so many sketched out. I have some written and they're just like chilling on my desktop until their time arrives.
Yeah. Well, the whole concept seems like way too time consuming for me. So if you think that machine sewing them on is lazy, then I won't even I can't even talk about it.
I think I'm grabbing my phone charger, sorry. But I think that it's not really, English paper piece, it's not because like always because it's like pretty and it's my favorite thing to like look at. A lot of it's just, I find it really like therapeutic to just like sit there and like do the stitches. It really like lowers my anxiety level. I have a lot of anxiety problems and it really calms me down, gives me purpose. Like, you know, when you're sitting on the couch and you're not doing anything, but probably scrolling through Instagram.
Yeah,
totally.
That's a good time to English paper piece.
That's smart.
Yeah, I usually crochet. Like I started crocheting because like my mom has sewn forever, but I was like, I'm going to do something different. And so that's what I would do. But so it's like very similar because you have to be so focused on what you're doing. And like, it is calming.
I crocheted before I English paper pieced. Do you like crocheting?
Sometimes.
Is it like the frustration with like the patterns? Because I feel like crochet patterns are crazy. It's like hieroglyphics. Is it that, or is it like the actual like?
I think I don't sit for very long. So like, so when I do, and it's like, I have like 5 minutes, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to spend this time, like get it all out, you know, work on it for 5 minutes and then I'm gone again. It's like, you know, it's fine. Like it was great, but now that I know how to quilt, I'm like, I'd rather do that than.
I think my general feelings is if you like crocheting, aside from the crazy patterns, because I once tried to make a hat and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was crocheting patterns. Like if you've never looked at them, like look at them. It's a whole thing.
It's straight gibberish.
It is.
They like abbreviate every single stitch. And so it's like BLO, then like FLO, then you're like, what?
But with the exception of like the patterns, like if you hate crocheting because patterns are terrifying in crochet, but if you like crocheting, you generally like English repiecing. That's what I've kind of found is like the soothing, repetitive motion and stuff. I find people who like crocheting generally like English repiecing.
Yeah.
You also may like it if you don't like crocheting, but I find everybody who's crocheted and English repieced for the most part likes it.
That makes sense. I mean, I think that concept of just having like to sit and take your time and focus on something. And like, I think I'm in that boat, like where you like start something because you're really excited about it. And then like, I get like a little bit in and I'm like, I want to do something different now. And so if it's not something I can get done really fast, like I just have a really hard time like sitting down and like paying attention to it. But I feel like most people who English paper piece also like, they know it's going to take time. So like, I don't know. And I think I also got so intimidated because I was watching like Tula Pink videos about her paper.
Oh yeah. The bust cutting and stuff. She does amazing.
Like, nope.
She does amazing stuff, but it would be really intimidating.
Yeah.
I always say my feelings with English paper piecing is that if you focus on finishing, you will be miserable. You have to just like enjoy. It has to be like enjoying the process.
Yeah.
If you're focusing on finishing, you will be so miserable. You have to, so miserable. You have to do it for the process. Like you have to enjoy the process, and that's why you're doing it. Eventually a quilt will happen or not happen in my case with my full English repiecing quilts. But it's the process. You have to really enjoy the process. If you focus on the finish line, unless it's like not very much English repiecing, you will hate everything.
Yeah, I definitely was like, if I ever do this, it'll have to be something like I will make a coaster or something small just to try it out, and not too much commitment.
Yeah.
Sounds like you should try it. I've never crocheted, so I'm going to make you try it and then you can report back.
Okay, I'll let you know. The time too, like I'm like, I don't know when I would do it because I have been so busy with jobs and like, podcasting, whatever. Like I haven't, like I started a hat and I was like, oh my gosh, this pattern's so easy. I was like whipping through it, but then like our shop got so busy and I literally have not been able to go back to that because I'm just like working till I go to bed.
Yeah. Which is great, but a lot. I don't know how you do it. Machine quilting is really all I have. Not the other day, but like over Christmas, I was making those little like woven star ornaments that were all over Instagram. I was just making those as like little things to give out. And I was trying to attach like a ribbon or like thread to it to make the actual like hanging part. And I was like, I actually don't own a sewing needle, which was crazy.
I don't own a needle.
Like, I don't even have a needle. So I had to like go buy a needle and I didn't even know what kind to buy. So I just got like the generic like multi-pack of like all-purpose sewing needles. Yeah, all of our friends like hand sew their binding on and I'm like, I'm good.
I hand sew all my binding on and I don't think I will ever not do it. Obviously I'm okay with hand sewing. I love it. My favorite part of a quilt, other than picking out fabrics, because that's probably my favorite part, is like when the quilt is all done and you have the binding, like the front is machine sewn and you like sit on the couch and you're just like hand sewing the binding on the back, because it's like being swaddled with your like ultimate project. You're like, here's our final bonding moment. And then you're like hand sewing it on. And I feel like it adds such a visible, there we go. My phone was falling over. It adds such a visible handmade look when you're looking at it. It just makes it so clear that it was made by someone and not a machine. And I don't know, there's something about it that just makes the quilt for me feel like so much more special. Yeah. But I'm also probably crazy about it. I do like the big chunky thing. I don't know. It's one of those, like the soup things that people have like really intense opinions about. Like, I think machine binding is great, but I think I'll always do the hand sewn binding.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it'd be fun to play with. We talked to Sarah from Sarah Made a couple of weeks ago, and she posts some really amazing photos of her hand binding, but she does like little stars or like little, I was like, how, first of all?
I have seen those. And like, so now I have like one of my goals for this year is like try a bunch of like crazy stitches. Cause normally I just do like the, like the traditional stitch. And now I'm like, okay, I've seen all this. I got to like try a bunch of stitches. I got to invent some stitches. I don't know, but we're going to have to get funky with this. Cause now the door has just been like blown wide open and we gotta experiment over here. But I've only finished like one quilt this year so far. I have like a bunch. I just haven't bound them yet.
It is January 31st. So I think that's okay.
It's only been 1 month. You're fine.
I have tops that are done. I have 2 at the long armor right now. I have one that's like literally on my chair about to get sent off. And I haven't gotten to binding yet, but I have like these like intense binding dreams in my head. I don't know that they'll actually happen, but like in my head, it's like this magical place where I'm going to do all this binding experimentation.
Yeah.
I think it'll happen. And I'm excited to see it. I think if I tried, it would just be like, they wouldn't look like little stars or little hearts or whatever is happening there.
I'm definitely going to practice first.
Yeah. I do want to attempt like the big stitch because I've seen so many people do that. And like, for quilts that our shop makes for clients, like we mostly hand bind stuff. Like sometimes we won't, if it's like a kid quilt or something, like we'll machine stitch it on just for like durability. But I've done so much hand binding.
Do you normally do like the invisible stitch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You really should try it because honestly, it's faster.
Yeah. That's why I hear like it's faster.
It is a lot faster.
I might try it on like a personal quilt. I'm making one. I'm actually testing a pattern for Katerina Rochella right now. So, but I also was like, oh, that would be such cute like quilt to do the big stitch binding on. But I'm like, oh, do I even have time for that? Like, I don't know. Cause I have to have it done, in a certain amount of time. So
yeah, I've been meaning to make reels. I have like so many ideas in my head about like reels that I want to make, but a lot of them like require 2 people. And so I always have to like rope my husband into this, like, want to make a reel. And the other day it like kept crashing on me. So we had to record the same thing 3 times. And I'm like, I feel like if I was the cook, I'd offer to make you food, but we all know that you're the cook. So I'm going to go do some dishes or something.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's just so cool looking. Like, but again, it's another skill that's like,
I feel like there's so many of like little skills like that in quilting that you can really, that you can, like don't have to learn, but you can learn. I've been trying to, I'm really bad. Like I'm always like, I'm going to learn how to do all these things. And like, I have such dreams, but I'm really bad about like, okay, I'm going to learn this one thing and then I have to get good at it. And then I'll learn this next thing. So I feel like I'm progressing like at the speed of a tortoise over here. Like I'll learn how to do that eventually. I got to master this one thing first. Like we got to learn how to make snowflake binding or something. I don't know. We're going to have to really conquer this before we go try one of these things.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm the same way. I have talked about this before, how if I'm not like immediately amazing at something, I'm like, this is just not for me. And I won't be doing that anymore. So
no, my problem is like, if I'm not immediately amazing at it, I'm like, okay, well, we're going to get amazing. We're going to sit here until we're amazing. We're going to figure this out. I don't care if it takes months, but I will be amazing at the end of this. So what happens is it takes me forever for me to learn anything because I refuse to be like, oh, it's not my thing. Or so I have to like really want to start something new if it's a skill, because I realize that I'm going to get crazy about it. So I guess I have skill fear now because I know that once I start, it's going to just be this whole big thing.
Yeah. So what's next on your skills to learn list?
I was really going to try to focus on like learning a lot more skills this year. I was like, that's going to be my big focus. And instead I've had like all these ideas for skills that I already possess conveniently. And I've really been working on just stuff that I already know how to do. But I have so many things like skill wise that I theoretically want to learn. Like I still have not sewn curves, which I feel like is ridiculous.
Same.
But I haven't done it. But I feel like I should have done it already. But I also love geometric stuff. Like you can probably tell by my patterns that I like really love like geometric shapes and like hexagons and like the angular look. So I'm not, kind of makes sense I haven't done curves, but I feel like I should learn how to do this. It feels like a skill that I need.
It's tricky. I did it once because I made a quilt for my father-in-law and his wife for Christmas. So, and I got a kit. It's like an art gallery kit. And so it was like a sun, like there's a mountain peak and then there was like a sun like coming off the side.
I saw that kit.
Yeah, it was fun and it was beautiful and it was worth it. But also I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. Like, because of how, like, you know, one piece is curved and then you have to do wrong sides together, but then it's like the curve goes opposite. So you have to like stretch it and push it and pin it to the in the wrong way. And I was like, why?
I also, and I want to be clear, like, I'm not like done is better than perfect and everything, but I'm really intense about having to have perfect corners. It's like a personal thing. Like everybody else have whatever corners you want. There is no judgment, but like on a personal level, like it has to line up perfectly. It's one of the reasons why I love English paper piecing. I know that they will all line up perfectly. It's guaranteed. So I'm just really worried about curves because I worry it's like the Pandora box of my craziness because I'm going to like start trying to piece curves and I'm like, it's not perfect. So there's going to be like a month of me making curves as I'm crying into my scrap box or something. And I have like 4 wonky quilts later. And then I'm like, I've learned it. But like, I don't know that I want to dedicate a month of my life to that.
Yeah. It's something. That was, and thankfully they were big enough that it wasn't like, I wasn't trying to fight with like tiny pieces. So I feel like if you do a bigger curve, like to practice with or learn with, I think that is almost better because I think I already struggle so much with smaller pieces, like going through the machine. And so if I was trying to do that with like a tiny curve, I would have lost my mind, but it wasn't too terrible. I just don't want to do it again.
I think there are some incredible like pattern designers and quilters that do these insanely gorgeous curved quilts. And like, I don't want to do them. I really don't, but I love to look at them. I'm just like, you're a national treasure. So I'm like looking at these crazy quilts, like Cotton and Bourbon. Her stuff is just like mind blowing. It's like foundation paper piece meets curves. And I'm like, oof. Yikes. I don't know that I can personally do that, but I want to see everything that you do forever because it's so amazing.
Yeah, that sounds so cool. There's some patterns that I really want to do too. Like, I think it's just called Looper, but it's the one where it just like, it just loops. It's just a nice little loop. And you can kind of, I think in the pattern, you can just like make it loop kind of like however you want to. I think it's so pretty and beautiful, but I'm like, maybe I can just admire this one that is made and
look at someone else's.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that all is making me want to learn all those skills, but not enough to actually do it. So I'll just continue to admire your English paper piecing and Amanda's lovely hand binding. And
I think that's the coolest thing about quilting is that there's so many different kinds of skills to put into it that it's like you can do whatever fits your creative style. And then it's also great because like we're all creating art and putting beauty out into the world. And like, and there's like so much variety in it that like, it's cool. Like, it's so cool. It's like, that's your thing. And you can express your voice through that. And that's your thing. And you can express your voice through that. Like, I don't know. That's like the biggest thing I love about quilting is that it's so diverse and like, there's so many different ways to go about it that you're never like really recreating the same thing twice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Even like the same pattern, you like different fabrics makes the entire thing look completely different. So like just the fabrics alone makes everything look different. And then you add in like the skills and everything else. It's just infinite possibilities.
Yeah. It's something.
That's what I was thinking. Like with your Gondor quilt, I was part of the testing group for that. And like, just like where like the darks and the lights were, it just made everyone's quilt look so different. I was going to say earlier, because you're like, I'm good at math, I can put a pattern together. I'm not good at math. And the result of that is that I usually just end up cutting like way too many pieces because I don't know why. So even like for the Gondor quilt, I ended up making it like quite a bit bigger than the pattern said, but it's because I was like, I cut like an extra 100 triangles. Like, what am I going to do with these?
I always just assumed you were like really tall.
I am really tall. That's true too.
That is also true.
I'm very short, and my husband has this belief that like a quilt needs to be able to like fold over his feet and like reach his chin. So like what I think is an acceptable quilt size is not what he thinks is an acceptable quilt size. Like the other night he was on the couch and he like grabbed a quilt and he was like, "Why is this quilt so small? What is wrong with this quilt?"
You're like, hello.
He's like trying to like flop it around to get it to completely cover him, and I was like, "Here's a bigger one, hun."
Yeah, I have that same belief, and I do make all of my quilts bigger. I want them to be like at least 72 inches because I am 6 feet tall. I want it to fold under my feet and like hit up here. So all my quilts are giant. And then I sometimes have a realization like, oh, I don't have to make it like 80 inches square. I can like make a smaller size quilt and that would be fine. But
I'm like 5'2" if I round. So what I feel is an acceptable quilt size, I have to like, the other day I was doing like a pattern and I was like, that's perfectly fine. And I was like, wait a second. You are a short human. You need to make this longer.
Yeah. Our quilty friend Jen is also pretty short. And so when she's making like a throw quilt or something, she'll hold it up and it will be like above her head. And then we fold it up and it's like,
we're like, this is cute.
So I'm so short, I can't, and I have really short arms too. In addition, like disproportionately short arms. I don't know, and so I can't hold up quilts for photos ever because I'm like, ugh, and I'm like falling over, like trying to hold this quilt up. And so my husband always holds them up, always, and he's gotten really, really good at it. He's like always manages, like I don't know, he's like standing with like he's like turtling his neck and like squatting weird to like make sure that his head's not showing, his feet aren't showing. Honestly, at this point, it's a legitimate skill. It's a real skill that he has mastered.
He probably has very strong arms because it's very hard to like hold a quilt up even just for like 30 seconds.
I do it all the time. I'm like, okay, hurry, take a picture. Like squatting in the back. Like,
yes, he's so great at it at this point. Like, I don't know, like he's so good at it. He's never gonna not be holding up quilts at this point. He's just it's it for everything.
You have one of the most like amazing built-in photo backdrops in your house. I'm obsessed with it.
So like when we looked at this place, I was like, oh my God, that's gonna be great for cool photos. And I don't know what we're gonna do whenever we like move out of here because it's so convenient because it's the unair conditioned part of the loft that we live in. So like I literally like open the door, walk across the loft, and then I'm like, picture time. It's literally like right next to where I let the dogs out.
Yeah.
And so it's just so conveniently located. I can finish a quilt. Like I finished a quilt this afternoon, my Meg quilt, and my husband just held it up because it was sunny. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go ship it off today. So I have to like have zero planning other than like I need sunlight around taking pictures.
Yeah.
And it's so convenient for writing patterns and social media and stuff that I don't know what I'm gonna do when I don't have a wall. I'm gonna have to like plan. It's a problem.
Yeah. It's just like this very like rustic brick wall and there's a big window right there. It's so beautiful. I am also a photographer in my spare time. And if I had that, I would like 100% be like booking sessions, like come stand in front of my brick wall and
yeah.
Yeah, it's very conveniently located and it is very beautiful.
Yeah. I have a curtain rod just like hung up on my wall. But it
looks good in photos though.
It's just a white wall. It's not, this background is fake. This is not what my house looks like.
But it's also nice to have like a solid white background because the plaster is cream and this whole place is cream. So if I have a quilt that like clashes with cream, it makes it, I have to work harder to find photos. Although when I say that, actually, if you go downstairs and like go around the side of my fence, it's a patio. And my sister-in-law painted a mural on it. And so I used that the other day because it was like my Hexie Spectrum had like the bright rainbow colors and the white. And it looked not great against the brick wall with the cream plaster. So I like walked down the stairs and like turned the corner and I was like, all right, we're going to use the mural.
That's so cool. I just imagine that you live in like the coolest loft in the world.
Yeah.
I live in like a really tiny town and the loft is great for pictures and stuff. And it's really big but it's also like really old. So there's like random things that go wrong in it. And so I want to be clear that it's not as glamorous as it's like there's used to at one point had like a projector for like, I think it was like a movie theater at some point or something. It has like a stage at one part of it. And like, so where the projector is in the kitchen, but it used to be basically what's now the master bathroom. So there's like this window that goes from like right above the oven into our bathroom. And there's not like wood or glass or anything. There's like blinds and it's like parallel to the toilet. So it's like the toilet and then the oven, and there's like a window there, and it has blinds on it, and it's small because it's for a projector, but it's quirky.
That's wild. I love that.
You're not making it sound less cool. So
yeah, honestly, I'm like, everything you're saying, like, I just want to see it like even more now, because that sounds like
the other day I walked out of the bathroom and I was like, come back to my sewing room, and I was wearing these like Yoda house slippers that my sister got me for Christmas. They're like sock slippers. And I'm like, I love these slippers, they're the best. And then like I slid coming down the steps from the stage and I like almost busted it. It's quirky, you know?
Yeah. Not many people
Yoda slippers are dangerous.
Stage, like in their home.
Yeah.
I love that. I have a cow field next to my house, so sometimes I make people take pictures of quilts in this cow field, and that's pretty much my opportunity there.
I feel like I live in the country, like my husband's parents' land has like cows and stuff, and I feel like I should do that at some point, but like the wall is just so conveniently located, and then the mural's downstairs, like unless I'm on vacation, which we always bring quilts, because like sometimes we'll camping and it gets really cold or hotels are cold, so I usually have like a quilt duffel, and I'll bring it for pictures in the hotel or camping or whatever. But it's just the wall is so conveniently located in the mural, it's really hard for me to like have the effort to like leave my dwelling.
Have to go anywhere.
Quilt pics. Yeah, it's just like, okay, let's go take a quilt picture, and we grab the top or whatever we're taking, and we like walk 10 feet out there, and then like holds up and we're done.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. Your travel pictures are so great too. I think you go up to Utah a lot. I always recognize Utah.
So I feel like those pictures, I feel like they crack me up, because I feel like they look so pretty, but the like behind the scenes on them is always just like usually crazy stuff happening. Like what, like the wind. The other day I took one and I haven't posted it because like somehow the quilt clashed with the sky. I don't know what was happening. I guess it's a risk with blue quilts. But like the other day we were taking one, we're like on this like 4-wheel drive thing, and we're holding it up and it was too windy. I'm like, the wind will stop. My husband's like, the wind is not going to stop. And then there was like somebody who had parked their car to go do a trail, and they were like looking at us like we were completely crazy. And we just went with it. And then sometimes it works out nicely. Like we did another 4-wheel drive where we were like camping in like Island in the Sky and Canyonlands. And we had like a campsite down there. So there's nobody around. So it was really easy to take quilt pictures because like no one's here. I don't have to worry about being the crazy person. And it wasn't windy. And I was holding the quilt, and then my husband told me I was very bad at it, and that is fair. So we switched back to the original setup, which was him holding the quilt and me taking pictures, and all was right with the world.
Yeah, we're very familiar with that, of like taking quilt pictures in random public places and just being crazy and like blocking off the whole area.
Like
I hate to do it. I'm like, I get so much anxiety, and my husband's like such a people pleaser that like we just can't do that because I don't know, it cripples us internally.
No,
so we always like doing it in the middle of nowhere or the wall in our house. So I don't know what we're gonna do if we ever stop taking road trips or living here. I don't know how I'm gonna get cool pictures of anything.
Yeah,
I'll have to hang up a curtain rod.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, mine's above my head in my living room. So, you know, we make do.
I've really been wanting to hang a quilt up as like, you know, like wall art like that. Yeah. But like in the loft, all the ceilings are really high and there's like plaster and brick. And so it doesn't really make sense here, which is unfortunate. But
I don't know, maybe you could do like do 4 quilts. By 2.
Oh gosh. Maybe when I take the Christmas tree down.
Yeah. Amanda and I have taken quilt pictures like that, but we went to the Oregon coast a couple of years ago as like a girls trip, and I had just finished a quilt that I really wanted a picture of. I was like picturing it on the beach with the ocean, and it was going to be so amazing. And it was so windy, like crazy windy, which the Oregon coast is always windy. So I don't know why I was like, that'll be fine.
Is that the trip I missed?
Huh?
Is that the trip I missed?
No, you were there because you were holding the quilt.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Definitely there. blocking off like this whole little stretch of beach and like making people walk around us and trying to get a picture of this like windy quilt. But the picture turned out cool. It looks like the quilt is like levitating because you can't see Amanda's feet or head.
I love quilts in the wild photos, and then I love hearing the stories behind them too, because I feel like almost every quilt in the wild photo, there's some crazy story behind it. Like I have one from like New Year's where my friend was holding it up that I had gifted to her, and we had like, there hadn't been any snow when we were in Tennessee, and we got snowed into the cabin, and then we lost electricity and we lost water, and we're like, are we going to be able to get out of here? We have no heat now. And we didn't bring wood because, you know, I'm asthmatic, so we're like, we're not going to use the wood stove, and now we're like, we have no heat and no water and we can't leave.
No.
And so we finally, the roads were clear enough that we could leave, so we're like scrambling, put all our stuff in the car, and I was like, grab the quilt real quick, we'll take a picture. And like, so my friend just like held it up and she's like, is this okay? I'm like, it's fine. And then we got in the car and like drove across the country again. But like, I just feel like they're never as peaceful and serene as they seem like they are.
No,
I love it. It's very like Instagram versus reality. Like the story. I've done that so much with Amanda and like with my mom or whoever I'm with. I'm like, run out in the road and hold this really quick. Do not recommend running out into the road, but
I don't think we used them in the calendar this time, but for some of the pictures we were taking for the calendar, like my husband and I were standing behind the quilt, like holding it up in the middle of the road. And like, thankfully it's like it goes out into the desert. So it's like not busy and you can see a really long ways, like, okay, a car's coming, but it was just like, okay, stand in the middle of the road. Okay, go walk through this field. We almost broke our ankles. It's fine. But we were just holding it up and like, we had to hike some trails. And so we were like standing on the edge with like big bags of quilts while people were like actually hiking around us. We're like, hi.
My husband and I do a lot of hiking, and there has been debates before. Like, I was like, can I bring a quilt? He was like, we need water. Like, you can't put a quilt in. We don't have enough space for this. What are we going to do? Like, take it out in the middle of the hike and take a picture? And I'm like, well, yes, that was the idea that I had in mind.
Just put the waters inside the quilt, roll it up, and then put it on your back. That's fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to be like. I'm gonna like attach it, like, you know, like the yoga mat attachments, like at the bottom of my back.
Yeah.
Like, let's do this.
I love that. That's a good idea.
I actually might do that. I hadn't considered that until just now.
That sounds like a flawless plan.
Yeah, honestly, I can't wait.
We do a lot of hiking on these trips, but we don't usually take pictures when we're hiking. We usually do pictures when we're doing like the drives and stuff. But the wind sometimes it's just such a toss up. Like the last trip we did like to Utah, and like I thought we were gonna get a bunch of pictures, and I think I got like 2 usable photos, and the last one was questionably usable.
Yeah.
It was like sky clashing or the wind, and we were trying to like really get the drive done, because like we kind of do it as like an extra on these trips. It's not like, let's go take cool photos. It's like, we're gonna do this 4-wheel drive and then go up and see Bryce Canyon, and then maybe we can do another 4-wheel drive like back through Grand Staircase. I think it's Escalante National Monument. I feel like I might have pronounced that wrong. And so it's like, do we have time for cool photos? Because like, that's not why we're here, kind of thing. And so usually it's like an extra. So sometimes it does not happen.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I get
they're just like in a duffel in the back just in case.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many times where I'm somewhere and I'm like, oh, I wish I had a quilt. This would be so perfect for a quilt photo.
Honestly, like when we were driving to Colorado all those times to go visit, because my father-in-law lives like just outside of Colorado Springs, but then our oldest son is he's in the Space Force and he's stationed in Colorado Springs. So we've been driving to Colorado to visit like quite a few times. I'm like, why didn't I bring a quilt a single time? And then the one time I don't go, because my husband was there for like the last 3 weeks, like he took the quilt to his dad, like because that was their Christmas present, but he knew he was going like right after Christmas. So we're like, well, we'll just wait. He can just like put it on the airplane or whatever. And of course I'm not there to take pictures of it. I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Yes. We have now, at some point we have a duffel bag that became the quilt duffel bag. And it's like, we can take as many, actually the rule of thumb that I usually am given is we can take as many quilts as fit into this duffel bag. That's the number of quilts we can bring. But I tried
like vacuum sealing them in.
Well, and then they get wrinkly. So like usually like whenever if we're staying in a hotel, as soon as we get there, I'm like flinging them out in the bed so they can like not wrinkle and stuff. But sometimes we're in a tent and it's like, well, it's gonna be wrinkly. We'll make it.
It is what it is.
We'll make it work.
I mean, quilts are a little wrinkly anyway. So I mean, I've never.
Yeah, but crinkle versus wrinkle.
Ironed that.
Crinkle versus wrinkle, though, you know.
True. Yeah.
A fold line.
Yeah. Like this, right?
That has happened to me. And I was like, oh, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah. I do.
Massive like fold line.
Yeah. I like take my quilts out because I have a bunch in my living room. Like they're like rolled up in this little like table console thing. But anyway, I like have to take them out and I like refold them different ways and try not to like let the creases settle in, but I don't always get to it in time.
I am terrible about folding them in like ways that like look pretty and like keep the creases from happening. Like my husband was like super sweet and got me. Like, I have like 2 glass display cabinets for quilts and a quilt ladder. And I don't want to say they're shoved in there because they're not, but they're like folded messily and shoved in there.
Yeah.
They're hard to wrangle up and like get them to fold like nicely, even if they're square. Like, I mean, this one's probably the squarest quilt I've ever made, but
especially if they have minky on them. I feel like all of mine, most of them have minky.
Oh yeah, just slippery everywhere.
Slippery. They just flop around everywhere.
they're like, yeah.
I'm also just really bad about being like I'm in the mood for a certain quilt, so I'll just like grab it out of the cabinet or whatever and then put another one in there. So you don't want to like spend all that work to like make it look pretty if like, you know you're just going to be like taking them in and out. And my husband does it too. He'll be like, where is blank quilt? That's the one I want. So like I'll go grab it or whatever, but I don't do a great job of just like, there's never like 2 quilts on my couch that just like are always there. I feel like they're rotating a lot. I do think it's definitely the way to find out if you have a favorite quilt.
Yeah.
Because you think you don't have one and then you're like, well, you live on the couch, so maybe you are my favorite.
Yeah.
How many quilts would you estimate that you have in your house?
Like finished quilts?
Yeah, like quilts just
Use
around.
quilts.
Oh God. When I first started, I haven't been quilting actually that long. And when I first started, I gave them all away. And I gave 3 away last year, which was, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
It was hard.
I usually ask this question to make myself feel better because I have a lot of quilts and I am always just curious because there's some that are like older that I made them like when I first started quilting and I just don't know what to do with them now except for keep them in my life, I guess. But I have a lot. So I always am just interested in what other quilters have around.
Maybe like 20.
Yeah, that's like what I have too.
I feel like I'm going to have a lot more soon because I did like the big push to finish projects last year. And then because stuff's done, I have time to make new things. Yeah. And like the more that I'm quilting, I feel like the less that I'm giving them away. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's not a popular opinion. But when I was first starting, I feel like I was like, oh, I finished one. It's great. And now when I finish them, there's a couple things too, is I feel like now when I finish them, I'm like, oh, there's so much work into it. And like, what if they don't like it? Then I gave away a quilt that I love and they don't like it. So I really only give it to people that I really know their taste. Mm-hmm. And I know they'll genuinely love it because I believe like quilts should be used.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give it to someone if I don't think they're going to use it and I don't think they like it. But also there's just so much work. It's just, and they're so expensive. It's hard for me to give them away to anybody that's not like really special. And I know their taste. And then also I tend to not, I know I do like a lot of geometric quilts, but whenever they're like more masculine and geometric, my husband tends to like love them. So I feel like I don't have a lot of like quilts that, like a lot of the guys in my family would like.
Yeah.
So I feel like I tend to keep them because you can only give females so many quilts theoretically. And a lot of my family does quilt, like my Nana quilts and my mom quilts. So I don't know, I keep a lot of them. And also I get attached to them, especially because a lot of the quilts I make now are for patterns that I've released. And like, so now I go and look at it and I'm like, but you're the first quilt pattern, you know, like you were the vision. And then this was the follow-up. And this was the one I just really tried to finish in time. And like, there's just like so many memories embedded in some of them. And then now that we like take them on, my husband and I take them on trips, like to like take pictures of them too. Like, I feel like originally you're thinking like, oh yeah, you'll get great pictures, but like they turn into like memories too of like you desperately trying to take this photo in the middle of nowhere on this 4-wheel drive. And like, I just feel like there's so many memories like making it and like the creation process of the design plus like life memories with them that I just have a really hard time letting them go.
Yeah.
So I don't very often.
Yeah.
So anyway, this year I think I'm going to have a lot more quilts to add to. At some point it's going to be a problem and I might have to do something, but they're really not, I feel like they're not really worth selling because like the valuation is so low. Like, I'd rather give them away or keep them. I'd rather give them away or keep them than sell them. So I always joke that I hoard my quilts like a dragon.
I think it's great. Like, and that's the thing is like, I mean, we're very pro use your quilt. Like they wash, they get better with time, whatever. But like, you can't, I just don't think you can ever have enough. Like, I mean, we have the ones we use on our beds, and then, you know, I like to rotate out the display one. And then we have the ones that stay on the couch in the lazy boy. Like we pull out the random different ones if we just want more, you know, more warmth and snuggle on the couch. Like it's something that like, you're not just creating like an art piece. Like it's something that's usable. And
yeah, I would say like cuttable art, like you can cuddle the art. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I have so many memories embedded in some of them. Like I just don't, some of them I don't think I could ever give away. And even if they're not my favorite, they're just, I just have so many memories to me to like, they have to stay. And then I have like, my mom made me a quilt when I first started college, and I have that quilt everywhere. And like, I picked out the fabric for it, and it's not my favorite fabric anymore. But like that quilt was literally on my like dorm mat all through college, and my mom made it for me. And it's just like really special to me. And I know that's only one of the many, many quilts in my house, but I don't know. I have a really hard time letting him go. I let 3 go last year, and it felt like a really, really big accomplishment for me. I was like, look at me. I got rid of 3. I gave away 3 quilts. This is a shining moment, you know?
Yeah.
I grapple with it all the time because it's the same. Like there's so many quilts that I want to work on, or like quilts that I'm proud of that I want to keep. And I know that like I'm going to work on more this year than I'm going to want to keep because of the time and effort that is put into them. But then there's probably a handful that I made just like when I first started quilting that were just very quick and very simple. And I don't know, I'm like, at what point do I have to start doing something with some of these? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I also tend to give them away sometimes if my husband, it's not like one of his favorites, if he's not like a huge fan of it, like he doesn't like the colors for some reason that I picked, then they tend not to get used because we're like, no, grab that other quilt, like, and he'll name one. And so then they just stand in the cabinet. And that's one of the reasons why I gave away 2 of mine last year, was because he just like didn't like them that much. So when we have so many options, whether it's like the size or the color, then I know like if I give them away, they'll be at use constantly. Like my best friend was FaceTiming me the other day, and like the quilt was just in the background on her couch. And like, it was, I think it had gone like a year in my house in the cabinet, never having been used. And like, she's using it every day now. Yeah. So
worth it.
I tend to, so that like was one of those, it was worth it. And after I gave it to her, she like death gripped it because she was worried I would grab it back. And I was like, that was a very me thing to do. You know me quite well.
Yeah.
Snatch it back and run. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Gifter's remorse. No, I think like, you know, like my mom and I get commissioned to make quilts for people a lot. You know, that's like our jam besides long arming. But also we get a lot of people that they just don't understand that it's so expensive. Like, and I'm not like, we're not overcharging. We're not like upcharging to like make things more expensive on purpose. Like we're literally just, you know, breaking down the cost of like what everything does cost. And people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was so expensive. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, and if you find it cheaper, then like, I don't want to know why it's cheaper, because I feel like I'm being really fair. And so, and then selling them, we both have Etsy shops too, that like, we have quilts up for sale that we've made, but I haven't sold a single one. I think I sold a table runner that my mom.
Yeah. I feel like that's so common. And I feel like some people try really hard, or they like lower the cost to like just cover materials so they can keep making quilts. And there's nothing wrong with that by any means. Like, I totally understand why a lot of people would definitely do that. But I just like, I don't know. I just don't like, I'd rather just keep them.
Yeah.
I know at some point that's not going to become an option. Like there's only so much space in my house, but I suppose I will cross that bridge when I get there.
I mean, don't jump to conclusions before you get there.
Yeah.
But I do think people don't understand the time that goes into them, especially because I tend not to make like the really, really fast quilts. I feel like I tend to make more slightly more time consuming ones, or like ones that have like a lot of technical aspects, or English whip creasing ones. Like I can't imagine like selling an English whip creasing quilt. Like I don't know who would ever pay the money that it would be close to being worth.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you could ever price that.
No.
Yeah.
Because I tend to do like crazy fussy cutting and everything else. Like,
yeah, crazy.
I don't.
Yeah. thousands of dollars, literally.
Yeah. So I will just keep my dragon sword, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you have our rapid fire questions?
Oh yeah. Okay. So we like to ask these questions of everybody. You've probably heard them if you've listened to our episodes, but are you ready?
I am totally ready.
Okay. Do you sew over pins?
No, I don't pin. I know that sounds terrible.
We don't either.
It's so much work, like just, like hold it and like finagle it, and like my points are fine, but pinning is just so much work. Like,
same.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Respect for everyone who does it, but like,
I do sometimes, but
yeah,
I feel like if you square your blocks and you iron your seams really well, like it'll be fine.
I have confidence in past me. I did it right. We'll be fine. And if it's not fine, then I'm going to stretch it or something because I'm not paying attention.
They'll make it work. So then with your seams, do you iron them open or to one side?
Open, always open, which I feel like is an unpopular opinion.
I do mine too, and Miranda hates it. She won't do it.
Well, I also do a lot of like geometric patterns and like triangles and hexagons and diamonds. I've been doing a lot of that lately, / always, I guess. And when you iron them open, you can like line up dog ears in a way that helps you get perfect corners without, pinning. It's like I feel like it's a cheat code kind of thing, but also I just like them open. I don't know.
I do too. It's like
I get too distracted to nest.
Yeah, getting them to nest is hard. And I just feel like, I don't know, it's like automatic right now for me because I've done it so much that like, even if I am not thinking about like, I'm going to iron this open, like I just automatically start doing it because I've just done it for so long that it's like not even a thought anymore. But it's so funny because we just like, it's like so 50-50, but anyway, do you like, are you a thread trimmer? Do you make sure like all your trims all your threads are trimmed before you like quilt a quilt or like
send it
to long armor?
I trim and iron as I go. Like I feel like I've seen people who are like, I'm done with my quilt top and like none of it is trimmed or ironed. And I'm like, oh my God, I would not want to spend the next however long doing that. I put in the work slowly as I go.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. Am I missing one?
Do you square your blocks?
Yeah, I do square your blocks.
It depends. So a lot of times I don't really make traditional blocks that often. Like you guys know, like no, probably my patterns don't tend to be like block based patterns. A lot of them are like rows and like geometric stuff, but I square HSTs because I hate them and I hate them so much. I rarely ever make them, but when I do make them, I square them. And flying geese, it depends. If I'm doing like really small ones, I square them, but honestly, I'm at the point where like the bigger ones, I don't have to square them. They like just come out close enough, almost, most of the time it's close enough that I just go for it, which I feel like is probably one of the craziest things I've said all day. But most of the time it works out. Like, I think I've just made enough of like geese, like the bigger geese that I'm just like, it's a machine over here. I don't need to trim it up. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it honestly is like my fleeting quilt that I made the other day that has like, Miranda tested that one and it has like all the flying geese making the whole design together. Didn't square up a single block. All my points are fine.
Yeah. I was just going to say that pattern was the first time that I made flying geese like in mass. I had only made them like a handful of them before and it was rough. It was rough going for a little bit there, but I feel like by the end they started to get better, but I definitely had to like straighten the top and the bottom to make them come together okay.
I think flying geese are definitely one of those things, like the more you do it, and I know that's with a lot of stuff in quilting, but like flying geese, it really is like, I always say if you're making flying geese for the first time, don't use your normal fabric, use some like scraps or why did I buy this? Or I made this for backing and I've had it for 4 years and I've genuinely been using it, but it's just never going to go away. It's just infinite fabric. And just make a couple test runs because I feel like your first few are always wonky. They just are. Like you can follow all the advice and have someone like stand over your shoulder and the first few are just going to be wonky. But I think with flying geese, like you make enough of them, they just all come out perfect. But
I had never made flying geese until like October, maybe. Because
Wow.
again, I was testing another quilt pattern for Katarina and it had flying geese this time. And I was like, I just did one block of the quilt because I just didn't have time to do a whole thing. But it was the first time I ever made geese. And yeah, I was like, these are wonk, but I didn't have the extra fabric to like mess around with them. And now in this new pattern, there's like a ton of geese as well. And there's some smaller ones, like, 2.25 by 4.25, or whatever they ended up being.
Yeah.
And then there's some bigger ones that are like, 4 by 8 or something. So the bigger ones, definitely, I was like, oh, I don't have to trim any of these. Like they came out so nice. But the smaller ones, I was like,
yeah. I always say like your first 2 sets of geese you're gonna make, just plan to throw them out. Don't use anything you actually want to use. Just plan for your first 2 sets to just be wonky, super wonky. But I love
still have to finish my fleeting quilt. I had planned to add another row like all the way around it, and it's just been
you haven't finished it.
No.
I love your fleeting quilt. Originally when I did the fleeting quilt pattern, I only made like 1 quilt personally. It's actually my cover quilt is the one that I gave to my mom last year. It's one of my 3 that I let go because I made it in like red and teal, and those are her favorite colors. So it was like the most her quilt I've probably ever made, or she's even made. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I've had it for like a year now. I'm ready to relinquish custody. But I loved yours so much. I actually like recently made another fleeting quilt because I had only ever made 1 of them. And like, I feel like every time you test one of my patterns, I'm like, oh my God, I love this version. I have to make like a variation of this version. You're laughing, but I'm serious. So the fleeting quilt, like I loved your bright one. So I did like a bright high volume one, which is at the long armors right now. And then your Gondor quilt, I loved the scrappiness and like the ombre look on it. And I tried to do an ombre and realized, I don't know, it didn't work. It didn't happen for me. But I did like the gold and like the jewel tone scraps on it.
I love that one.
And I feel like whenever you test my pattern, I love it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend this and make another version. But I always love all the quilts you make with my patterns. They're always so beautiful.
Fills me with immense joy.
I don't know if you've looked, I think both of them, like the actual like pattern listing, I think both of them has one of your quilt pictures on them.
I love that.
Yay.
I love them. And those are 2 of my favorite quilts, even though my fleeting one isn't done yet. And I need to put another row on it because I want to make it like big enough to put on my bed. So it'll just like live on my bed for all time. But
it's so beautiful. I love your fleeting quilt. It's got like the Allison glass and it's just beautiful. And I think you went like both brighter and lower volume than I went on my original one. And then even the second one that I made, I went higher volume.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about it. I'm getting like, Carly Porter's, I think it's Carly Porter. She does like the graffiti quilting.
Okay.
So I'm having like a neon pink thread with one of the graffitis like pantographed on mine.
Okay. I saw your post about that. That's
I am so excited. It's done. Yeah. She's working on my second quilt right now, and then she's going to mail them both to me. And so I'm like, I'm ready. Because the back is like the back is like a dark teal and it has like neon pink thread. And I think it's going to be insane.
That's
and then
amazing.
I love the low volume background that you did with the bright. I just love it. I love that fleeting quilt so much. I considered making literally the exact quilt and buying the fabric. I didn't, but I really almost did.
Yeah, I love it too. And I had actually been saving, it's the Allison Glass road trip line, and I'd been saving it forever for like the perfect quilt. And it just all came together so flawlessly. And again, I'm making it bigger because I cut extra pieces, but also I was like, I don't want to like waste a single scrap of this fabric. I want to use as much as possible. So I need to finish that. It's on my to be finished. I literally have had this stack of fabric sitting on my sewing table since I tested that pattern. Like it's still in progress as long as it's on the table.
Well, and she had it hanging on her curtain rod for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I literally, anytime we would go hang out at her house, I would just like go stand in her office and like stare at it for a while. I'm like, okay, I'm good now.
That's what I'm talking about with the fabric. Like she just like, the version of it is so beautiful. And then her Gondor quilt is what like inspired my scrap Gondor quilt. And it's just also just insanely beautiful. I tried to like make my own version of like what she made, like the whites and the scrap colors. And I didn't have enough scrappy whites. And then I didn't have enough like really like to do the ombre. So then I stopped and was like, okay, we need a whole new plan. Clearly we can't replicate Miranda's because it's not going to happen. So we need to come up with a new plan. So I did like the jeweled fat quarters for the white, because apparently white scraps don't live in my house. They die too quickly to have enough of it for this.
Yeah.
And then I did like the little jewel triangles and just random colors. And I really love the way that it turned out, but
Yeah.
Originally, I was like,
Jewel
I'm
tones.
gonna make Miranda. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. It's gonna be perfect. It's gonna look like hers because it's so beautiful. And then I was standing there. I was like, you don't have the scraps for this, honey. It's not gonna happen.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, she was like, I didn't even know like that, you know, pattern designers asked for quilt testers until she was like, oh, I'm testing a pattern. And I was like, what? And then she's like, yeah, you like this designer, I'm testing her pattern for her. And I was like, that's a thing. And then I got to do it. And I was like, this is super fun. But
it feels like an inner circle.
Yeah, it does. It's like a cool kid club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I do love my testers. I feel like they always do such amazing jobs. And I'm like, I try to like come up with like something to give them because I'm not a very big pattern designer. So I don't make like much money / any money. And I'm like, so like I think didn't I send you ice dyed for the gondola?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
But it's so cold now that I can't do ice dyeing. So like for fabric bundles for my testers, and I'm just like, yeah, you got to come up with a plan B or the sun needs to come out.
Yeah. That is so cool too. And I know that we said we were finishing and then we're not, but
that's probably my fault. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, it's good.
So ice dyed fabric I think is so cool. And I love that bundle you sent me. And I'm just like waiting again for like the perfect thing to use it on that will like showcase that. How do you do that?
Okay, so that's a really big question. And you're like, who said we were done? How do you do ice dyeing?
Just kidding.
Oh,
it's cold out, so I assume that for ice dyeing.
So a lot of people do it like inside their house and they put on like a mask or they do it in their basement. I don't have a basement. I have asthma, so wearing a mask is really just not enough for me. So I do it like outside. So the outdoor space, literally underneath the wall that you love so much, is where I ice dye. And I like lay down towels that don't like stain the floor that was never finished. And so basically you have like kind of like a bin to collect stuff, and then like a tray to put on top of it of some sort. And then you put the fabric on top, and then you put the ice on top, and then you put basically like dye powder. And then like for 24 hours, essentially like the ice melts and like the dye dyes the fabric, and you have the bin to like make sure you're not just like dyeing your whole table like crazy rainbow colors.
Melt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ice melts, and I was really starting to get into it, and then it got cold. Because I've only done like 3 batches, and then it got really cold, and I don't want to freeze to death.
Yeah, I don't want to be outside at all.
So I have to I'm waiting for like a day that's sunny, and then the following day is also sunny, and I have things together enough to ice dye, because that's a whole nother level of like my life is put together.
Yeah.
So I've just.
Well, it's very cool. It's very cool that you can like create your own pattern, basically like a very unique piece of fabric, and like create all the colors that go onto it. I think it's just very cool.
Yeah, I really, really, really was getting into it, and then I got cold, and I'm like literally been looking at the weather, and I think I was finally starting to feel like it was getting warm enough. Like today was kind of warm, and then my husband, it's like next week I'm gonna start ice dyeing. He's like, you know, it's gonna snow next week, right?
Yeah. Fine, the week after.
I'm like
being sabotaged again.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I just like love. Yeah, I know I already said it, but I just love like the different ways that like you can bring so many different skills and different other art mediums into quilting, and like it's so cool. And I saw your fabric that you sent her because, you know, we're friends, and she's like, this is what Hayley sent me. She like ice dyed these, and I was like, what the heck? I was like, they turned out so beautiful.
Thank you. It's one of my like first. I'm still working on it. I'm like trying to get, you know, like have better depth, but I think that like the actual ice dyed versus like the fabric that's printed to look kind of like it's ice dyed, I feel like there's a level of like depth in the colors. I don't really know how to describe it unless you're like seeing it in person, that the fabric really like achieves that. It just, I don't think can be replicated through like printing on fabric.
Yeah.
Because it just has like such depth to the color.
Yeah.
That I just don't think it's replicated when it's printed. Like if you look at all like the, you know, like the essentially like faux ice dye and all that kind of stuff, or indigo dyeing stuff, or all of that. And then you look at like one that somebody actually did, they're not the same. Because I'm not a huge fan of like the faux ice dyeing stuff, but like the actual ice dyeing is just beautiful. And I think, yeah, when you actually look at the fabric too, it's like one of those things that doesn't photograph, like metallics. I've been doing a lot of metallic stuff lately too. And it just doesn't, the photographs do not capture how beautiful it is.
I love
it. Just doesn't.
Yeah. I love metallic.
I've been on a huge metallic kick.
Yeah.
Such a massive metallic. I like back to quilt in metallic gold.
Yeah.
Like Rifle Paper Co. hardcore metallic gold, back the whole thing in it.
Yeah.
Love
I'm actually working on a quilt right now. Is a Christmas quilt that I didn't finish, story of my life, but it's the new Rifle Paper Company holiday line. And they have like white with metallic gold is what I chose for like the background, which as I was putting it together, I was like, this is a lot. This is quite a bit going on in this quilt, but
it's gorgeous.
It's just super golden.
I did that Gondor quilt that's metallic. And then I've been quilting some metallic quilts. I have a quilt at the Long Armor. My Gondor metallic quilt with the jewel scraps is getting metallic quilting on it. And the back is like the Ruby Star Cayenne Octopus with the metallic. So it's like, I don't know, metallic gold just like took over the quilt. And I'm really into metallics right now in the ice dyed. I think that like, I don't know, I'm really into like fabrics with like all these levels of like depth and dimension right now, but also feel like I'm having a solid rejuvenation. Like I've never been big on solids, and I feel like lately I've been doing more solids. I don't know. I love it all.
That's very cool. I actually haven't made a quilt with solids yet, but I have a quilt that's backed with that octopus fabric from Ruby Star also.
Solid quilts, I don't like making them. I know that sounds terrible. I do not like making them. I feel like they're so boring when you make them, but when you're done, they're so
they are beautiful. They're so beautiful.
I have like, so the 4-pack that I'm working on right now that has the 4 little women sisters on it. Amy's is solid and it's like AGF snow and Mystic Gray. And so I was piecing it and I was like, this is the most boring colors ever. This is so boring. And then I finished it and was like, and I'm like obsessed with it.
Just kidding. I love it. I'm sorry I said bad things.
It's so beautiful. Like, and then it like goes really well with the brick wall. So it looks really nice in the photograph that I have, that it's like unquilted. So, you know, it's up in here. But like piecing it, I was like, I'm going to die. Yeah. This is the most boring thing ever.
Yeah.
But like when they're done, I just feel like they're so just like beautiful and like classic. But I don't enjoy piecing them as much. So I've been trying to like I don't know. I've also just been going crazy lately. I'm like, we're going to do solid. We're going to do ice dyed. We're going to get like some earth tones in here, but we're also going to go bright. We're going to go scrappy, but I don't know. But I also feel like I'm always all over the place. Other than the fact that I like shapes, it's just a sock drawer in there. There is no, I feel like, you know, like people like, I feel like a lot of designers or even quilters, you go to their feed and there's like a vibe set with like the fabrics and the colors. And I feel like my feed does not achieve that. I have to try really hard actually to make sure that the pictures work together because I so all over the place. And sometimes like you put them next to each other and you're like, what is your feed? It looks not great right now.
Yeah,
but
I have the same struggle, but I decided I don't care that much. So
I disagree. I feel like your feed is always really like bright. And I don't know. I feel like there's like a pattern, like a color vibe. Like I feel like I could probably pick your quilts out of like a lineup pretty easily.
Rainbow.
And I feel that way about a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mine's a mess because we like, you know, when you're long arming for other people, you like, my quilt, I didn't choose those fabrics, but I also am like showcasing, like, look at this cool pantograph we did. Like it turned out really cool and it's not my quilt, but like, so I'm like, I had to give up on my squares because it just isn't going to look like that, you know, as long as I'm featuring other people's quilts, but
it's hard to like keep it all like cohesive on the main page, especially because I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on like random English word piecing. Now I'm going to make flying geese. Now I'm going to make like a mini sawtooth block. And then like, they're all different colors because they're from different projects. And I feel like I should probably make my feet more cohesive, but it also works. But I also think like the long arming, I love like watching the long arming machine like stitch the pantographs. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, I try to take so many videos. Anytime I'm long arming over at Amanda's, I'll try to take a video like that, and it's like much harder than anyone makes it seem. Like I just cannot get it.
Yeah,
I never really thought about how to
attach it to it.
I bet it is difficult. I feel like all reels and videos you think they're going to be difficult, and then they're at least 3 times harder than you think they're going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're over here like your one woman show, like trying to do everything. And you're like, this isn't
Yeah.
This is not going according to plan.
Yeah. I literally was trying to make a reel this morning with a sound and I was like, I don't even know how to do this. And I like deleted it. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I had to Google that and I can sound.
Yeah.
I know how to sound.
You've been up on the reels recently. I've seen that.
Yeah.
That inspired me. I was like, I'm going to make a reel. I'm going to be so cool like Hayley. And then it didn't work. So I was like, whatever.
It's the first time that's ever been said. It'd be so cool. Like, so I made a bunch of reels and I feel like a while back, I feel like they were doing really well. And I feel like recently, I don't know what's going on with the algorithm, but I feel like they haven't been doing as well, or maybe I'm just going crazy.
Yeah.
So I was making a bunch of reels. So I was feeling like motivated to make reels and then they like weren't doing as well as a lot of my previous ones have. I don't know if there's like, I think maybe I was making them too frequently. Like, like maybe you need to like have like a gap between them and like have them super regimented and scheduled, which is hard for creative people. I feel like though, because I feel like I go through spurts where I'm like, I'll make reels, and then spurts where I'm like, I'm gonna work on this quilt, and like I don't do so well with a set schedule. But I think maybe there needs to be like a gap between posting them is what I think that I found. And it's also just hard. I feel like with reels, it's hard to like not just videography and like the actual like technical aspect of it, but I think it's hard to like figure out like what to even like you have all these crazy ideas of like funny things or like technical things, but then you're like, does someone actually like, does everybody know this?
Yeah.
Like, does anybody want to learn this? And if you're doing funny ones, I always just feel like a complete and utter like idiot the whole time that I'm like filming these ridiculous things with like, I finish them and I'm like, oh, I don't know that we should have done that. I feel like
post.
like you post it and then I'm just like, I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have not made any reels for that reason. I'm like, I can't.
I mean, the flip side of that is I do feel like reels really do capture the level of, I guess, dorkiness that I encapsulate on a daily basis. So they are sincere to my personality.
Yeah.
I just feel so silly making them, so silly making them. And then you post them and you're like, I shared that with the world. And then I had one reel blow up. And of course I had a typo on it that I noticed like a couple hours after I posted it. And I'm like, it's not a big deal. Like no one will really notice. And it's like my one reel that's like blown up. And I'm like, of course it's the only one with a typo. But that's the one. That's the one that's gonna blow up. That's
Love it.
The way the universe works.
Yeah, social media is crazy and it's hard and it's a lot of work. And I haven't even posted on my Instagram in like a couple weeks because I'm just like, sometimes I just go through slumps where I'm like, I just don't want to do it right now.
It's a lot of work, I feel like, to make the pictures and the reels, in addition to like all the other stuff that's going on with like the quilts and everything. Like it's a whole level of marketing. And I do think there's a lot of designers, like pattern designers, who do a really great job with the marketing. And I feel like there's some who make like beautiful quilt patterns and beautiful quilts, but they're not as great with marketing. And I think that honestly, I feel like almost the marketing determines your success.
Yeah.
And like that kind of stuff more than like your content and the patterns and everything else. And so I've been trying to get better about marketing, but I feel like it's so hard to like hold yourself like accountable to doing like posts and everything. And I feel like when it feels unnatural like that, it's like exhausting.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to work on it. And you have to like keep your feet balanced. And it's like this whole thing that I feel like a lot of people don't really understand, like the level that is going on here. Cause you're like, okay, well, I have to finish up my post about this. And I need to start introducing that, but I can't introduce this until that's done. And then I already have 3 pictures of that posted on the feed and it clashes with this. And it's just like, I don't even want to deal with this today. So I'm going to make a goofy reel and then I'll post it and feel like I look like a complete idiot.
At least you're doing something.
Yeah.
Getting out there.
It's hard it's hard because then it's like, when you're in the middle of a project, it's like, oh, do I just stop and then take all this time to make this like content for social media when you're like on a roll? Like, I feel like I don't post stuff for like days at a time because then I'm like, I'm in this role of like, you know, getting everything done. But then it's like, then I feel like, oh, if I'm stopping, you know, to make social media content, then it's like, am I really using my time wisely? And it's like, I know it's out there and I need to get it out there, but also I feel like I'm wasting time because like there's so much out there also telling you to stop wasting time on social media and get your work done and all this like weird pressure. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't put yourself out there on social media, like,
it is a marketing thing. I've had that lately. I feel like I've had some stuff where I've been doing a good job of like taking pictures and stuff. And then I'll go through spurts where I don't, like the 4 pattern pack of the little women with like Joe, Amy, Megan, Beth. I'm on that's the 3rd one of the 4 on the wall. And I
I don't want to say no pictures, but like,
Yeah.
I got on a roll and I was just sewing it. And I was like, oh, I'm doing so much. And I have the patterns like completely written and I'm making all the quilts and I'm feeling so great about it. And I love the ones that I've made so far. And then I realized, like, honestly, like, I don't know, 30 minutes before this podcast call that didn't take a picture of this didn't take a picture of this fabric pull. I didn't take side pictures of them. I already have one like in the middle of hand quilting and one like ready to send off to long armor. And I haven't been taking pictures. I didn't take fabric pull pictures. I didn't take process pictures. And I don't know, sometimes you get on, I don't know. I had it on the wall and I was staring at it and I was like, oh, you maybe skipped some steps there, hun.
Like, oops.
Okay. It means you're just working on your actual project rather than thinking about Instagram.
Right.
I feel like also, I feel like fabric pulls, like everybody wants to see your fabric pull, but they don't do well. So it's like a weird.
Yeah.
I also like my fabric pull is that I bought a fat quarter bundle from somewhere that was like pre-curated. So I didn't do any work here.
I tend to go crazy and just like, I have my stash and I'm like, I don't want to go somewhere. I'm not going to order fabric. We are going to make this work.
Yeah. I'm always just like, so like envious of people who can just pull fabric and like make it all work together. Cause I feel like when I've tried to do that in the past, it has not come together well for me.
It's a skill, I think, a lot of times. And I think I also do a really bad job because I feel like I've had some quilts where people are like, oh, what fabric did you use? And they want to like replicate the quilt pattern with that fabric. And a lot of times I'm really bad about being like, I don't know, this fat quarter that I got when this quilt shop closed like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what it's called. And it's just like this whole thing that's not great. Like I put this one on the wall and I was like, man, you really maybe should have taken like a photo of the fabric and maybe written down if you had any salvages. Cause like half of what's on the wall is like Sharon Holland and half is like random stuff that was in my cabinet.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, especially if you are a person who stashes, like my mother, I know I talk about her a lot, but also I own my business with her. So, I mean, whatever, but, she like, my husband was like trying to do like a little inventory and like, whatever, try to do tax stuff. Cause whatever business. And he was like, okay, so like all this fabric, my mom's like, oh no, that's just mine. Like that's stuff I've owned for years. And he was like, what? Cause we have one bin, like one, big organizer tote bin that is like belongs to the business. And we have like probably 9 more of those full plus like the shoebox size, a bookshelf full of those, all full of fabric. That's all just like mine and hers that we've had just like outside of the business. And he was like,
it is great. It makes me feel better about my fabric stash, which is notoriously huge, but
I've been trying to be better this year about not buying fabric unless it's like really purposeful for projects or filling out like a gap in my stash. Like I don't want to have like a massive stash necessarily because I feel like also my taste tends to change. I'm all over the board. So I just like, it's really committing to a lot. Yeah. But like I tend to like fill in gaps, especially like to get to free shipping. I'll be like, well, I don't have any purples, so let's find a couple purples. And so that I have them in the stash bin. Because I do also go through spurts though, where I'm like this quilt, I pulled out this fabric quilt like 2 days ago because I was like, okay, it's time to make the Beth quilt. Opened the cabinet door, I'm like, we're gonna make this work. And if it doesn't work, we'll have to order fabric. But I don't want to have to order fabric. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Yeah. And so I like to have enough to be able to do that. But my tastes really do change. I feel like right now I'm in a big, kind of like in an earth tones phase, and it kind of rotates, but
I have so much fabric that I was like obsessed with when I bought it 2 years ago. And now I'm like, I don't really care about it anymore. Like I have so much stuff like that. So I'm trying to either just like sell it in my Etsy shop or like make a quilt out of it to give away or sell. Like sometimes it's nice to have that on hand, but I'm also trying to be a lot more intentional this year about like what fabric I'm actually buying because I don't need any of it. And I need to figure out what I'm doing with the stuff I have. Yeah, it's also I make a project out of it. It'll be like 2 years down the line and it'll be like, I don't even care about this anymore.
I've told myself I'm not allowed to buy any more fat quarter bundles until I use like 2 of the ones that I have. I'm really bad about buying all the Ruby Star bundles.
Me too. That's our favorite.
It's a problem. Yeah. It's a problem. It's a real problem.
Every single one. And I'm like, I don't need this one. I don't need this one. I'm not going to get it. And then I'll keep seeing pictures of it. And I'm like, I do need it actually. So
I think I have like 4 Ruby Star 5/4 bundles in my cabinet right now and like 1 Bonnie Christine.
yeah.
And I'm like, no more until you use them, no more. And so
I wish I could say I only had 4.
I know.
Well, I'm trying to, well, it's also because I write my own patterns that sometimes it's like, well, I love this 5/4 bundle, but it's not the number that I need for this pattern. So I'll have to either take them out or add them, or like sometimes there's too many repetitive, so they can't be like next to each other. So I was considering using like the Ruby Star one for my Beth quilt, but I was like, I haven't made a version of it yet. And I don't know if there's going to be too much like fabric touching of like colors or prints.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make this one first. But then I feel like I do that all the time. And then all of a sudden I have these fat quarters that aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I have like, cause I was part of a booster, like I was like in the fat quarter shop, like they had a fat quarter booster, like quarterly thing. I don't know why I can't say things right now. It's a quarterly booster club. So every quarter of the year, they would send you like 12 fat quarters with a pattern and a thread. And I have all these like sets of and it was like cotton and steel. So it's like good fabric, but they're just like hanging out because I'm like, I'm not ever going to make these quilts. I've made one and I gave it away to my friend. And I was like, I'm never doing that again because it was terrible. And so now I just have like all these fat quarters. I have like all this Tula pink, haven't touched it because I'm terrified to mess it up and like not be able to get it again because the people reselling fabric are trying to get away with highway robbery. It's fine. Like I just, but then you don't love it again then anymore, then it's hard to feel like you want to cut into it and make something with it because you're just kind of like, eh.
I'm trying to be better this year too about not like saving fabric like that with the Tula pink. I've been trying to be like really purposeful. Like if you love the fabric, cut into it. Because I also have found that like sometimes when you love fabric, like 3 years later, you don't love it anymore. So you didn't cut into it because you're like, oh, I love it so much. What if I risk it ruining it? And then in 3 years, you don't love it as much and you don't want to use it. And then also I feel like if you pick the right pattern with the right fabric, like you love the quilt when it's done. And I honestly, I'm trying to just buy fabric that I love so that I love the quilt, especially now that I have so many quilts. I feel like I have to like really love the pattern and the idea and the fabric. There needs to be like an obsessive love for all of it.
Yeah. Not just making to make, like.
Yeah. So cut into your Tula pink.
I know. I need to. It's just
pick a pattern, grab the rotary cutter and just.
Yeah. Like so busy. Don't really have time to do my own. Like this test pattern I'm doing is like, I keep trying to like work it in between, like working on, cut commissions. And then I'll work on that for a little bit, work on commission, work on that for a little bit. And I'm like, oh, I feel guilty working on something for myself right now, but like, it's also not really for me. I don't know. Anyway, sometimes I just want to like take a week off and just quilt for myself.
You should.
You should.
I really should.
It sounds like it would be healing, cathartic.
Yeah. I probably will. It's just like one of those things. Yeah. Like get the guts, cut into the fabric. And I always tell it to people all the time, but then do I do it? No. Like use the fabric.
Do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah.
But I'm really
mistakes.
I'm really trying this year to like cut into the fabric.
Yeah.
Just take the plunge.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. I'm going to do that too, because I have so many that just been stocking up on.
I know. We need to just cut into our Tula and just make our Tula quilts.
Well, I have, so I was going to say it, but I didn't know if I wanted to say it, but I'm going to say it. I got a big Tula pink fat quarter bundle of her All Stars fabric like a couple years ago. And I did cut it. I like fussy cut out all those little animals, but I totally I'm just like not even really into that fabric anymore. I don't love it. So
I also think there's like phases. Like sometimes I'll be like, I don't love it anymore. And then like a year later, I love it again. Like,
yeah. And I think that I could find a way to like really love it. Like if I paired it with like a nice background, it's just like, it's crazy. It's like the most neon thing in the world. And then like the coordinating fabrics I got are all like stripes and dots and neon. So I'm like, maybe if I paired it with like
something calmer.
Yeah. Like white or black or something to just like bring it back down to earth, then I would really love the quilt that ended up with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
We definitely go in phases, and I definitely go in phases where I just like am obsessed with something and then kind of just lose interest in it before I finish the project. And then I end up with squares just sitting on my on my desk forever. And yeah.
Yeah. I think we all go through that a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
I think at first it's like, oh my gosh, I need to get all this fabric. I need to do all these things. And like, now that we're settling into it, like, cause we started quilting at the same time, like what, 6 years ago now?
Yeah.
This year? Oh, okay. Anyway.
I lose all track of space and time. So I'm going to
I don't know what date it is. It's fine. But so I think it's in February, it'll be like 6 years since we started quilting. And I think now that we're like kind of settling into our style and like what we like, it's a little easier to not just like buy up a bunch of fabric that, I don't know. I feel more like I have more discernment now.
Yeah.
As far as like,
be a little bit more picky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right.
I think I have to buy fabric.
I think we could talk for another hour, but that would be crazy. So
I know.
Speaking of Instagram, tell us where people can find you on Instagram and if you have anything coming up that they should keep an eye out for.
So I'm Spring Days of Stitchery, and that is the Instagram handle. And I have like a lot of stuff actually coming out. I don't know when this podcast will be released into the world, but I am releasing a temperature quilt pattern and tutorial. And so my background is in climate data. Mm-hmm. And so I took that background in climate data to basically help everybody look up past temperatures. So you can go to like basically any location at any time, obviously not the middle of nowhere in like 1800, but like reasonable dates and places, and look up historical data. It has an Excel document for you to put everything in. It has like pages for you to put like your temperature range and your fabric swatch and plan all that out. And then it has like suggested block ideas, and it has 2 actual like basically quilt patterns in there. There's like a beginner half square triangle and like an intermediate mini sawtooth, so you can make the temperature quilt with it. So it really it's really flexible, but it gives you like everything you need to really be able to make a temperature quilt and however you want to make it. And then I have a ton of stuff going on. I'll limit it to and then I have the little women pack that I'm working on right now, which is going to be all machine pieced, and they're all half hexagons. And there's the Joe, Amy, Megan, Beth, and it's essentially all the same kind of design, but the fabric is in different places. So it sounds like they should all look really similar, but they all look so different. And they're really easy beginner level quilts and a really good intro to like angles and hexagons. And so I've been like, you heard me, I was like, I'm going so fast, I'm not taking pictures. I've been really in the zone with this one. And then I'm gonna stop there. This is too much. I have so many of the things.
You also have a newsletter. You should sign up for the newsletter.
Oh, yeah, I just did that. If you sign up for my newsletter, you get a free scrap pattern, which I do like the scrap pattern a lot because I have a friend who's like terrified of making scrap quilts. I feel like apparently I've never experienced this fear. I'm like crazy. I'm just like, let's do it. But a fear of scrap quilts. And I think it's a really basically like an easy dip into scraps because of the way that the blocks are. It's really easy to like dip your foot into scraps and like a non-stressful kind of layout, because you can kind of like do each heart individually and then just fill in the background however you want. You can even do a solid. So I think it's a really good, if you're terrified of scraps, intro scrap pattern. Plus I think we all have more scraps than we want to admit we have. I actually designed the pattern to get rid of some of my scraps, and somehow between the start of designing the pattern and releasing it, I have more scraps than I started.
I'm very excited to make that one. That one's, I think, going to be next to my list once I get the rest of my life together.
You have a timeline? I need to learn your ways if you think you're going to get it together.
I'm not. History has shown I'm not. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a great conversation, and I'm so glad that we got to chat in person.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. I know you've pattern tested me like twice, and like I've talked to you through Instagram for like over a year. So it's crazy. Like you like have these Instagram friends, and you like meet them in some version of real life, and it's like it's a real human that exists, that encapsulates these quilts.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Awesome. Well, we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye. All right.
Okay. So,
Do I hit the leave button?
huh?
You can.
Do I hit the leave button?
No, you don't have to. Well, I mean, you can, but we'll just, we'll probably get you out next week. Like next Monday, you'll be our episode. So, we will send you, like, I'll send you a follow-up email just, you know, to do the thing, but then we will send you, I'll send you like the links and stuff. Probably the night before, because we probably won't put it into YouTube until that night before. And then I can send you the links to our Spotify and Apple Podcast. Like,
I apologize about having to like take my phone across the house.
no, you're totally fine. Honestly, like we were just looking at the analytics because I was like, YouTube's not doing great, but like we're just fine on the listening platforms. So like,
yeah, I listen to you guys through Spotify.
Yeah, that's how I listen to it too.
Yeah. I mean, I hit all of it just because I'm obsessive about making sure all of them get hit. So
I like to listen to podcasts like when I'm driving. So I tend to like do Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, no worries, because half the time my dogs are like jumping up onto the counter like mid-frame or like barking or whatever. So no worries about moving while on the podcast.
No, you're totally fine. Yeah. So yeah, I'll send you that email and then I'll send you the links ahead of time so you have them and you can share them however you want. Yeah. Because we'll obviously. So yeah.
Cool. I have to get back to work. I have so many people pinging me right now. I'm just like,
oops. Take it to
well, thank you for having me. I feel like I talked way too much. Hopefully not too fast.
Amazing. It was so
I'm very bad at about talking too fast and too much.
We were like excited to have you on because I was like, she's going to be like so great and like just have such a great conversation. And I'm so excited. So it was perfect.
It was great.
I feel like I was all over the place. So I'm glad.
It was great.
Yeah, I'm constantly all over the place though, especially when you get into quilting. So I'm like, this project, and that pattern, and this pattern, and then it's just like
there's like no linear conversations when it comes to crafting whatsoever. So like I feel like it was perfect.
I feel like I needed visual aids because we were talking about that fleeting quilt. I feel like I needed to be like, here's the
I know. Sometimes we do put pictures in over the video. So
yeah. So we might go dig some up and just like pop them into the video and then we'll, we even kind of tell people like, if you want to see stuff, like go to the YouTube. Because some people have said things like you should put pictures of things in your videos. And so we do sometimes if we remember. But
if you need to grab anything off my feed, feel free. I feel like I was like I need visual aids. I need to be like the quilt.
This one and this one.
This is the quilt I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And I'm sure that we will just chat soon in some fashion. Bye.
Okay. You don't have any more questions?
I thought you were talking to me.
Oh, sorry. No, Miranda. Yeah. What do you want to ask us? Do you want to?
Oh my God, that wasn't supposed to have a question.